Hi everyone, and welcome to A to I Dyslexia live show, all things dyslexia. What a privilege to be here today. What a beautiful day as well. It's been so amazing going out for my walks during my lunch hour and so forth. It's such a pleasure to be back. We did take some time off during Easter. I think we all need a break from time to time to kind of recoup and come back fresh to start our live shows. So I just want to say hello to everyone who's joined us now. Welcome to our live show, All Things Dyslexia. Today we have amazing young lady with us. Every time I say young lady, she comes and says, it's not quite like that, Elizabeth, but you know, she is so phenomenal and she's doing amazing work with both children and adults regarding dyslexia and so forth. The title of our live show today is Dyslexia Easy Reading. We have Fauzia Jan. Fauzia is a recovery teacher and she's based in Bradford, and she's been doing amazing work with dyslexics, like I said, both children and adults. I want to say a very big thank you to our funders, one of them being the London Community Foundation, and also social and not social enterprise. I forgot the name of it, but it'll come to me in a minute. Let me just say, part of my dyslexia is forgetfulness with words. So if I do forget anything, do pardon me, and I'll come back and correct that later on. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Fauzia Jan to our live show, and the title today, Easy Reading Dyslexia. Fauzia, welcome to A2I Dyslexia live show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting me on and helping me to share all these my experiences and hopefully some strategies that will help some of your viewers. Yeah, so thank
Wonderful.
you.
Excellent. It's such a pleasure for you to come on our live show and speak about all the work you've been doing and why you went into this kind of work and the passion that you've got behind this. But before I do that, I want to do a little quick introduction, read up about your biography. So Fauzia is additional learning needs as well as reading recovery teacher. Your qualification just goes across the page. So I'm not going to read them today. Of course, when people go and watch this on all our different platforms, they'll be able to, identify who you are and what you do. So with over 20 years experience teaching in primary schools, Fauzia is a recovery specialist teacher, as a reading recovery teacher in a primary school. I'm not going to read everything because you've got your background and you're going to tell us a bit more about you and why you do the work you do. So over to you, Fauzia.
No, well, thank you. And I suppose, as you can see, I have been in education a very long time, mostly in primary schools. So I've worked as a class teacher, but it was in 2009 when I trained as a reading recovery teacher. And so since then, I have been working mainly with children, supporting those children that find reading difficult. So not all with dyslexia, but many with dyslexia. Alongside that, I also teach at the local college where I just completed my master's degree as well. So I teach on a foundation degree for teaching assistants who are aspiring to be teachers. So I'm in a lovely role because I work in a lovely school with absolutely amazing children. And then I also teach adults as well. So I get to see quite a range. I have my 6-year-old head on where I'm talking to 6-7-year-olds, and then I have to change and talk to those trainee teachers. So a very privileged position to be in. I did in 2015 achieve AMDA, which is an associate member of the British Dyslexia Association, and that's where I've learned lots of my sort of skills and strategies to help the dyslexic learner. And I have found that as I've sort of like gone through my academic journey, I've built up a whole sort of toolkit of strategies and things that help me in my sort of day-to-day job. And hopefully for those who have, who are parents or who have children, or maybe who know somebody who is dyslexic, they'll be able to sort of use some of the ideas I'm going to suggest.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. So that's in terms of my academic background. So, I've sort of studied throughout those 25 years. If you look at the next slide, I just thought I'd share something about my personal journey. So not so long ago, just before the last lockdown, I started to learn a new skill. So I'm not dyslexic like yourself, Elizabeth, and I've always found reading quite easy. And one of the things that actually really inspired me to want to help learners, with their reading is the fact that, because I did find it so natural and easy, is why are children not getting it? Why are they finding it so hard? And learning a new skill has really helped me to empathize with those learners, so I can see things from your end. So I never learned to cycle as a child. I tried it, thought it would be quite easy, usually quite, I thought I had good coordination skills, thought I was quite confident, but I really struggled. And it sort of just made me think about, when you're learning a new skill, whether it's reading or anything, there are challenges. And one of the big things that I have found is that it's that fear of failing or falling in this case. And I think for many children that I work with, there is that fear that I can't do it. And, and I can't do it, and it's too hard, and it's too difficult for me. And that for me has been learning to cycle. I have struggled. I've seen others who've within a few hours are cycling, where I've had to take so many lessons and just now beginning to get my balance. But it's been that practice, that reinforcement, some adjustments that have been made for me that have helped. And that's very similar to the skills of learning to read, okay, whoever you are. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I've got dyspraxia, and I tried sort of using one leg to do this scooter thing that all these children are doing. Yeah. And I just couldn't cope with that, to be honest with you. I kept getting all the coordination wrong. And bicycle is a no-no for me. I'd love to, but not been able to do that.
Certain things you think no.
Absolutely, yeah. And but one day, you never know. One day I might get on a bike, and here we go. Now I think I forgot to actually introduce myself, because we may have new people that might have joined us for our live show. And I just want to say that my name's Elizabeth Tetchy, and I am the CEO, the founder of A2I Dyslexia. And we support both children from the age of 7 to adults. It's open age. We will never tell anyone that either you're too old or too young to join our programs that we run currently. And just before we actually dive into this, I also want to mention that we've been given funding by Black Thrive to run a workshop for Lambeth residents, Lambeth residents. And out of that, we are given 6 free dyslexia assessment, full dyslexia assessment for free. If you know anyone that lives in Lambeth and you're watching right now, pass on the information. We're also running a study skills program that's funded by the London Community Foundation, and we are giving that absolutely free to students that need the study skills support. Again, please do share it. If you've joined us now, do share this, comment, and obviously invite your friends to join us as well. So Fauzia, over to you now. I know we've got a bit more PowerPoints to go through. Yeah.
No, I mean, what fantastic facilities, what things you're offering them. It's good to hear, isn't it? So,
of course, yes.
Yeah. So I think the thing you've sort of asked me to really talk about is reading fluency and making reading easy. So I put up there, I mean, don't worry, you don't have to really understand that big, long quote there that I've that defines what fluency is. But in simple terms, when we talk about fluent reading, we're talking about reading that is smooth. Okay, so it sounds like talking. It needs to be something that's automatic, because that's what good readers do. They're able to decode the words smoothly, read it all nice and smooth, so it sounds like talking. They understand what they're reading, and it's enjoyable, and they get meaning from it. Okay, and the importance of increased fluency, being able to have that smooth reading, is better comprehension, so you understand what you're reading. And this eventually leads to reading enjoyment. And for me, when I'm teaching when I'm working with those children who are learning to read and who are struggling to read, we really focus on reading fluency. And the strategies that I'm going to talk about are there to support them. Okay, so we want that nice, smooth reading where it's not that word by word sounding out each letter, okay, and it sounds painful, and then they've forgotten what they've even said, and it's not robots reading. We're talking about smooth talk like reading. So that's what we mean by reading fluency. Okay. Sorry, if you want to go on to the next slide, I'll just, before I go on to the, is there anything you wanted to ask about that, Elizabeth? Or?
No, not at all. I've just, I think it's so brilliant the way you're kind of, I mean, the question was, what does reading fluency mean? And you've actually covered that. So now we're talking about the working memory, which is something I really struggle with. So I'm just going to leave you to go through the PowerPoints.
All right, okay. Well, the reason why I've mentioned working memory, because I think when you think of dyslexia, you always think of difficulties with reading, there's difficulties with spelling. But one of the big sort of an important feature of being dyslexic is a poor working memory. And I'm not going to talk loads about it because I think, you know, there's lots of research around there on this. But generally, I think if you're a parent working with a child or you're working with somebody who is struggling to read, you've got to remember that you know, anxiety, if somebody's feeling nervous or stressed, or, you know, they're worried about what they're doing, they know that something's going to be difficult, this actually reduces the access to the working memory, which already may be quite poor. So it's really important that when anytime you do any reading or supporting any child with the reading, it's as stress-free as possible. Okay, so really, really important. The other thing that's really important is something called this unconscious communication. Now, that basically means it's when we pass a message, and it's not always by the things we say, but it's maybe the tone of voice we use. Or our body language or our eye contact. So it's the things that we communicate, we show a person, we pass the message on. We don't always realize we're doing it. Okay, but that may show your anxiety. All right. So making sure that if you are relaxed and you are enjoying something, okay, you are seeing the positive in things, your child will enjoy it. And I think a very big part of my job is when I work with the child, and the Reading Recovery Programme, actually, it's a daily programme. And we work one-to-one. It's quite a bespoke programme, one-to-one with a child daily. And with that child, you're always looking at what they can do rather than what they can't. So I've worked with some children who only recognise the letters in their name, for example. They're only able to recognise those letters, but they can still do something. And we say, well, you're able to do that. And we start to build upon it. So if you try to show them that, I know you can do this, and you reflect that in your unconscious, your communication, the child will respond to it. It's mirrored. Enjoyment is mirrored. And there's been lots of sort of research on the brain and working memory, which supports that. So that's I just thought I'd mention the role of working memory there.
Wonderful, excellent. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Anxiety reduces access to reading memory. Do you know what? The panic sometimes for dyslexics or even myself to actually realize that, look, I'm about to read something, and you think you just don't want to stumble on a word, you know.
Yeah.
And I think when you spoke about anxiety, I'm like, I actually get that. As confident as I am, you know, when it gets to that, it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. Yeah.
And I think it does, and it becomes worse when you have people around you who are also anxious for you. Whereas if the people around you are relaxed, if you're in that environment where it's more relaxed, you are then going to also relax.
Absolutely.
And that's the same in the cycling. When I was learning to cycle, you know, I had a supportive instructor. And knowing that it's okay to, just really just walk rather than, pedal first. It's absolutely fine to do that. It relaxes you and it gives you the confidence to do on. So that is massively important. We shouldn't undervalue that as, setting that environment where it is stress-free.
Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I've got a question here that I'm burning to ask. So can you give us examples of strategies that can be used to develop reading fluency and making reading easy? I'm sure you've got something on your PowerPoint.
Yeah, if we look at the next slide, it should be on that one. So if we look at the slide after the working memory one, there we are. We've got some strategies there. Now, there's quite a few, but I'll just mention, the first one, this alphabetical principle, okay? So this is something I do with the children, and it's with an alphabet arc, we call. So it's having the letters of the alphabet and putting them in sort of like an arc, being able to know and recognise automatically all the letter names and all the letter sounds. Now, it sounds like a really quite simple thing, but actually, if a child or a learner is not secure on the alphabetical principle, they're going to struggle with the reading. So it should be, as a parent or somebody, working with a child, it should be something quite short, snappy, fast and fun. And it shouldn't involve writing, so you don't want to scare them off by saying we're going to do some spelling today or we're going to read. It's just a matter of ordering those letters, okay, and recognising and knowing the letter-sound relationship. And it's also really important for your study skills for later on. So
Right.
I've worked with many children who've confused G and J,
Yeah.
the name and the sound, and they'll still continue to do it. But through this practice, it does minimize that. And it's sometimes, even though it will continue to happen, it might not happen as often. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's quite an important thing, that, you know, phonics is important. We can't go hide away from phonics, and the alphabetical principle is important as well. But it should be done in a really fun, short, snappy, sort of little but often way. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I'd suggest people get themselves some either magnetic letters, so that you can play with them. It's something to physically touch, and order those, or you can have them on cards. But there is lots of information out there about the alphabet arc and activities you can do there.
Right. Now, you said something about children getting confused J and G. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's not just children, Fauzia. So
And it carries on, I know. But the thing with reading recovery, and the thing with my sort of job, is that it's an early intervention. So that's why I'm working with children, and I always refer to it as children, but I'm working with children in years 1 and 2. So these are 6-7-year-olds. So if we can get them automatic at that age, and where it becomes where, you know, they're not focused on, is it a G, is it a J? And it takes a long time to do that, because for the dyslexic child, it's not as straightforward as it is for children who don't have dyslexia. So but it's something we work on. But you're right. And adults can, you know, it can work for adults as well. And it's a fun way of doing it, because you beat your time, you improve your score, and you make it a bit of a competition. So yeah, so that's the first sort of thing I would sort of emphasize. The second one on the PowerPoint is the power of, I've put interest-led learning. And what I mean by that is choosing books that your child or the person or you yourself are interested in. Okay, especially when you're learning reading, it's important that you've got that interest in there. So reading is not just about decoding and sounding out words. Reading is about understanding as well, and it's enjoyment. And I think that for me is a really big thing. It's pushing that. It's about enjoyment as well. So making sure that you have books that, you know, your child or the learner is interested in. And it's okay not to complete a book. Okay, right. The third one that I've put is about modeling fluency. So what I mean by this is, as an adult or as somebody else with that child, show them what a good reader sounds like. So you'd actually, you know, say, right, I'm going to read these few sentences, and you read it. So you stop at the full stop, you pause at the comma, you know, you sound like a good reader. And if you model it, they can almost mimic the model that you've given them. Okay, so it's doing that shared reading. So that's a really useful thing to do, and it also takes a little bit of pressure and stops them from being overtired. Okay.
The
next one I put is using the RR is for the reading recovery approach. So in the lesson that I teach, we have a familiar book, and then a new book. So we have 3 books that we read in that half-hour session. And we always start with a book that they have read before. And the reason for that is because you want to develop the confidence. So with something that you have seen before, you're more likely to be able to read it a bit easier. Okay, and you remember certain words that would have tripped you up before, and you're not spending a lot of your time having to break up and sound out all the words. Okay, so build up the confidence by using familiar books, and it also allows you to sort of ask questions as well. And you've got to remember, reading, you know, decoding is one part of reading. Comprehension and understanding is another part as well. So if you, you know, introduce that, sort of have a familiar book or have books that they've read before where they can sound like good readers, that's fine. It doesn't mean that they've learned it off by heart or whatever. It's, you know, it's just that confidence building. All right. As part of the lesson, we introduce a new book. Now, when I introduce a new book, I would never just say, right, here's a book, I want you to read it. What we do is we debug it. So I would look at the book and say, right, do you know what this book is? I'd introduce it. This book's about 2 children and they're going on an adventure somewhere. Okay. I would actually, if there were some tricky names in there, I would just tell them the names. So, for example, with my name Fauzia, it's Fauzia. I'm not going to expect them to sound it out. I would just tell them the name. I want them to be able to enjoy the story as well. So you would tell them any things that might be difficult, some really tricky words that they won't get. Just tell them and say, look, let's look at that word. It's got long bits. Look how it's, is it similar to any other words you've seen? So that's what I mean by debugging it. So you set them up to pass. You don't set them up to fail. You don't just give them a book and say,
sorry, Fauzia. I just got a tickly cough.
You don't set them up to fail. You give them a book so that you know that they will be able to succeed in it. So okay. The other
now, let me just quickly ask a question there. Now, I just want to contribute to what the PowerPoint that you're giving at the moment. I think the joy for me when I finish a book, Fauzia, it's like, wow, I've managed to finish a book. I recently purchased the book, and it's actually on my windowsill. I think you can see it in the camera, actually. And it's by an author called Dr. Tracy Johnson, and it's a journey of hope for dyslexics. I bought that book, and I thought, I'm going to set myself a target, and I'm going to finish it by a certain date. And I did. And I really treated myself to a nice little box of chocolate, because it's that great feeling of being able to finish reading a book.
It is. But have you noticed it was a book that interests you?
Absolutely.
And you were able to complete that because you had a purpose. Okay, you wanted to know about that. It's something you can relate to, and it interests you. And that's part of the success as well. So, and this is the same for all our children. If you're motivated to read something, you're more likely to complete it and keep going at it.
Very true.
So with the younger children, and I suppose again with adults as well, it's reading something and then making a picture in your head. And that's quite a useful memory technique as well. So it's sort of saying that, okay, I've read this and I need to, because it's not just saying, oh, I've got through the words, I've read the words, that's it, I can forget about it. Reading is about, learning to read. You then move on from reading to learn. And so, making those pictures in your head, visualizing what's happening, questioning yourself. So reading is about developing yourself cognitively as well, about, your brain, expanding your brain and your way of thinking and empathy and all those other skills that we want good readers and good people to have. So that's again another skill. I
think one of the biggest challenge for me was when I was at university, all these textbooks and all these big fat books we have to read. And of course, I'm somebody that when I read, I like to see pictures, if I have to be honest, so I can kind of connect with it. Like I said, the book I recently read, there were pictures in there, which was really brilliant. But these big, heavy textbooks, I mean, you've done university, most of your, you've got a couple of degrees and a master's there. I know you don't have dyslexia, but what sort of advice would you give to someone who's studying like a journalism course, for example, where there's lots of reading?
Use technology. Make sure you can, if you prefer to hear something, use it. Why do you have to read that big book with all those big words in there? Okay, it's if you can still get that information, and it's what you do with that information. Use it. Use the things adjustments that are allowed for you. So I would say don't sit there struggling trying to decode words and especially if it's something that maybe doesn't really interest you either, and it's something you get through to a means to an end. Technology without a doubt. Okay, so exactly. But then going back to that PowerPoint, I think we've got this again. So even if it is a big textbook, allow think time, for yourself. So whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, when I'm working with a child, we don't just interject and rush in and say, oh, correct it. You give them think time to work it out. Let their process, because their speed of processing might not be as fast as somebody else's. So you allow them to have that thought process, and again, tricky names or difficult words, tell them. And as I was saying, in those difficult textbooks, use an audio text of it, you use the facilities that are at hand. But think time is massive. We sort of read lots of things, and then we move on to the next thing. Whereas you do need time to sometimes go back, reread things and think about it. Okay. And also give them time to work things out as well. And then finally, for the younger readers, what I tend to do as well is encourage the use of other clues. So it's not just looking at what the letter, decoding the letter, so being able to know all the sounds. It's actually sometimes using, the meaning, so you can not guess it, but you can use what's happened in the rest of the text to work out what word comes next. And so, asking quite commonly, we'll ask, well, does that sound right? Would you use that word in there? And if they don't know that word, say that, okay, now we need to be able to use our phonics knowledge or our knowledge of the sounds, okay, there. And does it make sense? So using other clues as well as just the phonics clues. But all children now in primary schools are being taught phonics. So that is
something I still struggle with, Fauzia, to be honest, phonics. I'm like, okay, I'm used to A for apple, B for Ben and all that, but
but the phonics, there's lots of good in the phonics if it's taught well. But we shouldn't forget that reading is not just about those breaking those sounds up. We want to instill a love of reading for our children, and for our adults as well. So it's got to have a fun element to it as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh wow, that's so amazing. Now let's just see if anybody's joined us, or if we've got people who've got comments. We go to the studio and speak to our producer Richard, who's in the background. If there are any comments, please do drop them, and if Fazia's got Fazia will be able to answer that question for you. If not, we'll just carry on with the program. I don't know how many people that have joined us or any comments. So we just carry on with it, to be honest with you. So it's absolutely great listening to all that. I mean, I know you've got a few more PowerPoints to share with us. I'll just let you carry on with that, Fauzia, to be honest with you, because it's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, the next slide is, I suppose this is another strategy as well, but I put this on a separate one because it's just a fancy word which says metacognition. Okay. And it's something you can do with a young child and an adult and so on. But it's what we mean by metacognition is thinking about how you learn. Okay, so it's asking your child, okay, you were able to read that word or you knew that word, but how come, what was it what helped you to remember that, or what helped you to work it out? So it's getting the learner to sort of take that, have an awareness and understanding of their own thought processes. And from young children, we can do that. So what did you do that helped you to read that word? And they say, well, I looked at the first bit and I knew it was made this sound. And then I read across the word. Or they might say, well, I know the book is about parks. So obviously the word said tree, but getting them to verbalize that and talk about it. And then it gets them to think, oh, you know what, I know I can do that. Then you might not always see that you've worked something out, okay? But then when you've had to ask yourself, or somebody's asked you, how did you work it out? It makes them think about the thought process. And I think that's for all of us. And I think it helps you to grow in confidence, and it keeps you motivated because it makes you think, yeah, I did work that out. I read that. And, you ask yourself, for example, you said you felt really satisfied when you completed the book that you just read.
Yeah.
What was it that enabled you to do that? How come you were able to read all that, get meaning out of it, really understand it? And you know how challenging it is. But think about what helped you to do that. Are you aware of your own thinking process, your own thought process? So that, again, with children, we can ask on a level to say that, how did you know that? And then getting them to tell you and think about how they were able to do it. And then remind them and say, do you remember last time you did this? Can you do it again? What do you think you can do? So it's supporting the child and providing them and showing them the skills on how to sort of to use those strategies and making them aware of it. And that is, I mean, metacognition is so important for confidence building and for motivation as well. So I thought,
to be honest, when you put that word up on the PowerPoint, I looked and I thought, what is that? And then I had to break it up, and I thought, right, okay, so MET, it's at Met, and then the A in the middle, and then the cog, and then nition. That's how I can actually say it. But if someone said, if I started reading and if I had to say that word in one go, it will be mumbo jumbo. It will sound something close.
But you've learned to break it up, haven't you? And you have, and you might take a little bit longer, but you've got it. Okay, and you'll probably remember that word now because it is quite a long, unusual word, and it's quite a, children love big words. They'll forget the word, I don't know, and for example, but they will remember the word beautiful because it's the look at the length of the word and the look at the context of it and so on. So it's and just developing their awareness and having those conversations with the learners, because they are able to understand it. If you go through it, we need to talk to them on that level. So I think that is a really simple, cheap, effective way of a cheap, effective strategy, really. So so
Wonderful.
metacognition is very important.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, if you've just joined us now, today we're speaking about dyslexia and easy reading. And we've got the amazing Fauzia Jan, who is reading recovery teacher and been working with children for many years on how to read easily or how to understand what you're reading. She's got a few PowerPoints and she's talking to us today about all the different strategies that one can use to read confidently and enjoy reading. I mean, I love books. Fauzia, I'll go into a bookshop, and we weren't able to go to bookshop because they're all closed. But previously, I'll go to a bookshop like Waterstones or Foyles at Tottenham Court Road. I don't even know if it's still there. And I will spend hours in a bookshop just looking at the cover of them, looking at the back, flicking through them, smelling that book and think, I really want this book. And I bought many, many books over the years. And sometimes I'd start from the beginning and read a little bit and I'll just fling it to one side. Because many years ago, audiobooks were difficult to find, And now what I'm finding with audiobooks is if the voice doesn't sit right with me, you get some of them that kind of like a machine voice, that just completely, I just put that to one side.
Ruins the whole book. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I do love reading, and I have met so many dyslexics in the past or even currently who love reading, but it's words, it's book, you're looking at it, and it can be quite challenging. But I mean, I think your advice will be continue to read what interests you.
It's lots. It is, and it's not just that. It's lots of practice, and you've got to remember if we're talking about the Alphabet Principle. If you become secure in that, if you do the practice, if you use other strategies, so it's not just the sounding out, but you're looking at what's happened before, so you can work out a tricky word and it comes fluently, comes smoothly, you can, and it's overlearning, it's lots and lots of practice and trying different ways of reading those words. But yes, phonics is important as well, without a doubt.
I mean, one thing I do say to some of our clients and people I've met in the past, I always say that, look, knowledge is power. And the more you read, the more you get to find out, and the more you learn about things. As a dyslexic, I normally say, don't run away from it. But, some of the strategies you've used today on this platform could be something that parents can share with their children, or even as an adult. I'm going to go away and look at some of those things. That maybe this is how I should be reading to enjoy it. It doesn't come easily, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't. But
no, it doesn't. And I think, going back to the cycling analogy, when you're learning something, I'm so busy trying to remember to move my feet in a certain way and the posture of your back that you're not looking where you're going. You're just focusing so hard on doing the mechanics. But when it becomes automatic, you can then start to think, right, I need to go here, I need to go there. And that's the same with reading. And for dyslexics, it's, sometimes you'll see a word in one way and maybe see it in another. But I still do believe that, if there's that level of interest and there's something there that will capture you, you will succeed at it. And you demonstrated that with the last book that you read,
Of course, yeah.
But then,
and of course,
I'm just saying, if things are too difficult, use technology. Don't tire yourself and don't make it become a real where you do not enjoy doing it. Okay. So if there's something that if there's an alternative option, then go for that. Yeah. But obviously our youngsters, we want them to be able to learn to read, and that's key as well. So
of course, yeah. And then one of the ways, of course, that when I read, for me to remember what I've read, the whole book will be covered with highlighters, and that's all my different colors.
Yeah, and that's fine. That works for you. That's your strategy. That's you knowing that this works for me, and that's absolutely fine, because you are highly successful, and you have found ways of doing things that fit for you. And this should
Absolutely.
inspire others to have the confidence to do that. So, well done, and keep highlighting.
I think one of my friends lent me a book, and by the time I gave it back, she said, "You might as well keep it. You've highlighted everywhere, and what am I going to do with this?" So
yeah, no, but that's your strategy that you have found for yourself, haven't you? You've found that works for you. So yeah,
absolutely. Now, just to say that if you've joined us today, we're speaking about dyslexia, easy reading. We have Fauzia Jan, who is a reading recovery teacher, who's joined us today, giving us strategies and ways to enjoy reading. And if you've just joined us, that's what we are speaking about today. If you have any comments, please do drop them. You can share the video. You can invite people to still come and watch it, because we've still got a couple of, I say a couple of minutes, about 10 minutes to go before the live show ends. I'm going to now ask a question that I think needs to be asked. You have shared the strategies. Now, what would be your 3 top tip for any parent who's watching right now, who may be struggling, or, I say struggling because, for example, if you've got a parent who's got dyslexia and the child has got dyslexia, how do we manage that? You're both got the same condition. You're trying to make things work. And there's nothing as difficult as trying to help a child to read and they're just fiddling doing something else. And you're like, look, we need to get this done. What sort of strategies would you give us, or tips for parents?
Yes. Well, if we go back to the PowerPoint, I've put 3 top tips, but then I've added a few extras. So I think for me, the big thing is being relaxed, because when we talked about the unconscious communication, people can sense, your child can sense when you are not relaxed, and those I think emotions and learning, they are connected. So if you are relaxed, your child will be relaxed. Okay, so that for me is a big thing. And it's I mean, you sort of gave the example, if the parent struggles with reading and the child struggles, that anxiety can rub off onto each other, can't it? Yeah. But if the child is, I'm talking about early reading here. Okay, so I'd be hoping that the parent, would benefit from working with the child as well. But the biggest thing is you have to be relaxed, whether that's in the home environment or whether that's in the school environment. So I make sure that when I'm with the child that I'm working with, I've developed and built up that relationship with them. And we're looking at always what they can do and not what they can't. And it's small steps. So that's the big one. The second one for me is the modeling fluency. So if you really struggle with your reading, then maybe you do need to have it where fluency is modeled or shown by a recording of it, or somebody else doing it. But that is a really big part of it, because it sets the tone, it lets relaxes the child as well, and they have something to right, so this is what I need to do. I need to stop at a full stop, I need to do this at a comma. So again, modeling that fluency, having a turn, and rereading the same book. There's nothing wrong with rereading the same book, and asking different types of questions about that book, because you want to instill that interest in them. You want them to be interested in it. And if you are unfamiliar with a book, you're just so busy trying to work out what the words are that you're not really conscious of what it's about. Whereas when you've read the book before, you can read the words a little bit more smoother. So you're not having to tire yourself on sounding everything out, and you can focus on what actually the story is about. Because don't lose focus. Don't forget on point 4 there is, reading is about reading for meaning and pleasure. It's got to have that element of pleasure in there, because otherwise your child's not going to want to learn. It's got to have that, and it might take that little bit more effort to make it pleasurable. And then linked to that pleasure bit is the power of interest-led learning. Let your child choose. They've got to experiment, try other things, but I think for early reading, it's got to be things that interest them. And then using things with pictures and other, strategies that you can look at as well. So looking at the meaning, the grammar, does that sound make sense? Does it make sense? What do we know about it? Compare it to other things. And alongside all of that, I would definitely say use technology. Don't be afraid that, we can't do that alongside this. So whilst they're still getting used to the alphabetical principle and knowing all the letters and the sounds and the phonics, use tech. They can still have books around them. They can still listen to books and stories and still be questioned about them and get them to, those deeper thinking skills. Okay. Alongside learning the alphabet code as such. So those are a couple of my sort of the key ones that I think are really, really important.
That's so fantastic. Honestly, really, really fantastic. And I guess we can use these strategies no matter what language we're reading in, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This cuts across, whichever language. And I think it's developing that relationship with your child, because you said you love to go to a bookshop and touch and feel a book.
Yeah.
Sitting with a child with a book and you two sharing it, your child will grow up and have memories linked to that story or that book. And there is a real power and beauty of being able to read something physical and hold a book and be able to read that and match the pictures to what you're doing and think about it and feel sad and feel happy for people and understand how other people feel. So we're developing all our other sort of learning as well as just reading and sounding out those words. So reading is much more than just decoding. Yeah. Wow. And we shouldn't lose sight of that. Yeah.
Of course. This is absolutely fantastic. Now, do you offer private tuition, Fauzia, yourself? Or was it just in the college?
No, because I'm teaching. Yeah, I'm quite busy, so I'm teaching obviously in the primary school, and then I'm teach at college occasionally as well. And then I have a family and things as well that I, so this is But I'm happy to take if anyone has any questions or I'm more than happy to to respond at a later date. So
This has been absolutely fantastic. Do you know what I love? The PowerPoint slides. You can't lose that. I mean, I can always go back and watch these videos and think, oh, this is what I need to do to make sure that I'm doing it this way or that way. And I think the PowerPoint you shared with us is absolutely phenomenal. And that's something that we're going to hold on to. Obviously, it's going to be part of the video. If anybody wants to connect with Fauzia, she is on LinkedIn, or you can email A2I Dyslexia as well. I mean, Fauzia does do her teaching, and I can imagine how busy she must be. But this is why she's come along this evening, and she's given us some tips of how to read and enjoy reading. Now, I just want to say thank you so much, Fauzia. Thank you so much for coming on our live show this evening. You've done phenomenal work.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's been lovely. It's I've really enjoyed. It's for me. It's if we can get every single child to have the opportunity to be able to, it's life changing, isn't it? And I think this is what makes my job worthwhile. So thank you for letting me share this platform and to be able to share those experiences. And just before we go to Elizabeth, the very last slide, can I just show you, because I think it's
absolutely really go for it.
Yes. Yeah. Finally, I've just put, I think I highly recommend you learn a new skill, okay? And that's for every adult or every person or who works with somebody who does find reading challenging, okay? I just think you should try something new, just so that we get the empathy for those people, for those people that do struggle with reading. So that's my final point there.
When you say highly recommend you learn a new skill, give me an example of that.
Like cycling, for example.
Like cycling.
Or anything that you haven't done before. You see, I went in thinking, I see 5-year-olds cycle and they lift their hands off the bar and they do all these fancy tricks. And I thought, that's easy, I can do it. But it's not proven to be so. And that's how for many learners with dyslexia, they see other children in their class, they see other people around them reading so fluently and fast, and they don't, it's not a problem for them. But for them, it's a challenge, and it's hard, and we forget how difficult it is for those who are dyslexic. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much, Fauzia. It's been a pleasure speaking to you on our topic today, dyslexia, easy reading. I just want to say thank you, and thank you to our viewers that joined us this evening. Of course, you can visit A2I Dyslexia. Our website is www.a2idyslexia.org.uk. You can follow us on all our social media channels. Like I said, we have programs that we're offering at the moment. Black Thrive, we're giving full dyslexia assessment to people that participate in Black Thrive Lambeth program. We've also got our program called Create Your Future with Dyslexia, which is funded by Education Skills Funding Agency. And again, we still got availability on that workshop. If anybody wants to join, they can. And we're offering free study skills to both children and adults. So you can email us at team@atydyslexia.org.uk, or you can send us ring us or text us, or whichever way you want to be able to do this. Now, just to say, all those things that I've said that we are running, it is actually London-based. So if you live outside London, I'm afraid you can't really, tap into any of those facilities, any of those workshops that we will be running. But if you're in any other London boroughs, do contact us about all the 3 different workshops that I've mentioned, or study skills and so forth. That brings us to the end of our show. And I think today we've been on time. I can't believe it. We normally go over time, but we've been on time today. And I want to say thank you, Fauzia. Thank you to Richard, who is behind the camera in the studio, making sure this runs very smoothly. And thank you to our admin team and all our researchers that make this possible, Rachel and everybody else that's involved, for bringing this program forward to our viewers. Now, that brings us to the end of our show. Next week, we're back same time, same place, at 7 p.m. and we'll be talking about something else to do with dyslexia, all things dyslexia. So lovely, welcome, and thank you everybody rather, and I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.